Welcome to the Freedom Files. This is a space where we talk about all things healing, helping you get out of survival mode and heal emotionally, and ultimately stepping into the life that you were designed by God to live. I'm Jen Weir, and I'm the founder of the Healing Havens, and which is just a broader picture of what I mentioned. So today we're continuing on a topic surrounding Gen X. It's a discussion that has been talked about on various platforms for a number of years now. We joke about it. We've all trauma bonded through flexing our trauma. But ultimately, as I've studied this generation over the last number of years, I have seen that we have an alarming high suicide rate, which is unacceptable, really, for any generation, right? So my goal of doing this series is simply to show Gen X that we have a voice and it's time to use it. But first, you have to deal with the emotions and the trauma that has caused us all to feel the way we feel. And so in doing that, I'm a writer, not a vlogger. So I like to just read my blogs that I've written. So much easier. And let us begin. Today's topic within the Gen X discussion is when your child has more emotional freedom than you do. So when you know better, you do better, right? But when doing better is mingled with bitterness, resentment, and all those things because you never had the better, tension mounts. For those who are Gen X wanting to give and do their kids right, do better rather than what their parents did, there's a contrast that can seem kind of double-minded. We want one thing, but feel this frustration simmering below. Not that anyone would ever mention, mind you, but seriously, who cares, right? The stat that Gen X has the highest suicide rate of any other generation has nagged me enough to say, I care. Good parents want far better for their kid, no matter how good the parent had it when they were kids. It's the part of the DNA that God has that is in all of us. God is all about increase. And so naturally, we would be too. He's for expansion. He's always says, I'm doing something better. The future's always brighter. So naturally, parents reflecting the image of God, we now desire to raise our crew so much better, right? Again, this isn't saying that everybody in Gen X had it horrible. Some had it great, but by and large, a whole generation didn't. And now we're raising kids that we want to be super healthy. So for Gen X parents, we want our kids to not be met with harsh discipline and freedom of expression. This is overgeneralizing, of course, but here's the deal. Yay, we did it. Our kids are vocal. Our kids are blunt. Our kids are expressive. They're free. But sometimes that can be amazingly hard to tolerate because truthfully, having a vocal, blunt, and massively expressive kid can rub those tender spots on you as a parent. It can stir up bitterness and resentment, and seeing them be and do things that we were never allowed to do. And many times it's at our own emotional expense. It's exhausting to have your child bust your chops at midnight because they've got some kind of beef with you, or offer opinions on decisions being made that are frankly really grown-up decisions that you just can't make because you're a kid. You can't have an opinion on it. But it's not exhausting for the reasons that many people think. Late nights and constant contrary questions just come with the territory of parenting. It never stops, by the way. I can assure you, as kids of or parents of way adult kids, the questioning, the contrary thoughts, and the late night texts and calls never stop, particularly with kids in the military. I get texts at all hours of the night asking questions and having concerns. Time zones are kind of funny that way. It's exhausting because not only are you getting questions that are well past your bedtime, the questions are challenging. They can be accusatory sometimes. And oftentimes they're spoken from a place of ignorance and with a not fully developed frontal lobe. That's just biology, right? We understand this, we welcome this, yet we are still hurting and our voice is still squashed from when we were told children are to be seen and not heard. That line, that one statement, is probably the most damaging thing a parent can ever speak over their child. Watching your child express emotions you were forced to suppress and probably got a what for if you attempted to express yourself is painful. Gen X adults had childhoods that were not filled with emotional attunement. We spent our childhood learning how to not upset adults, how to regulate ourselves alone, how to carry responsibility early, and how to survive instability without becoming a problem. And here's what happened. You, dear Gen X pal, learned to figure things out for yourself. You swallowed disappointment, and consequently, you learned early not to expect too much. And somewhere along the way, your emotional restraint became your identity. It became the identity of 65 million people. To this day, I have no idea why or how Gen X decided we would be the generation of cycle breakers. But typically, kids follow in the footsteps of their parents to some degree. For example, gang mamas took their babies away from the streets of East LA in the mid-90s to Palmdale, California. My husband and I lived in not Palmdale, but Lancaster, California. And one of the most incredible things we saw was just the rampant amount of gangs that were there. And here's what happened is they took kids from East LA, moved up there, but they never took the mindset out of their kids and out of themselves. And so I guess, well, as of the early 2000s, I haven't been back there in 100 years. It's still a pretty rough area, so you got to change your mindset. For some reason, we all, talking about Gen X again, started having kids. And we took it upon ourselves to change the world, to change them. And it was so desperately needed. Very typical Gen X, by the way. Also typical Gen X, we figured out how to do this all by ourselves. We simply became more emotionally available, more affirming, more involved, more protective, and more conversational. I literally homeschool my kids with a program called Classical Conversations. We talk about everything. That's what we do. We're talking all day long. We instinctively wanted our babes to feel safe, seen, and have the ability to ask questions and express their emotions, most importantly. And since no one taught Gen X how to do this, no one was able to prep us for the fact that giving your child emotional freedom can unintentionally expose the grief of your own emotional deprivation. Because sometimes when your child openly expresses frustration, anger, disappointment, or needs, something inside you whispers, I was never allowed to do that. And if we're honest, another thought follows. And it's, if I had spoken that way, there would be consequences. You all know the consequences. And these consequences, frankly, are ones that today kids would be removed from the home. The rationalization can create enormous internal conflict. The freedom our young ones have can still feel destabilizing to our nervous system, the ones that we built through emotional restraint. We were already taxed emotionally when we started having kids. You see the connection there? Many Gen X parents became confused by the intensity of their own reactions. A rude tone, an eye roll, a dismissive comment, a teenager speaking with emotional certainty. That's my favorite. And suddenly something inside feels flooded. Your nervous system isn't reacting to the child, it's reacting to memory. Your body is reacting to years of carrying responsibility silently, to never being comforted, to learning that respect kept the household stable, and to surviving environments where emotional expression literally felt dangerous. For a lot of Gen X adults, respect was not merely etiquette. It was our protection and our survival. The respect we gave reduced conflict, punishment, chaos, humiliation, and or emotional volatility. And so now, when younger generations communicate casually towards authority, emotionally process publicly, and push back openly, the Gen X nervous system may unconsciously interpret that as instability. And I find this in my own life. When my kids start smack talking my mom, I want to curl under a rock and have it be my last day. But hear me well. This has zero to do with the next generation. This is not about them needing to be more respectful, and has everything to do with us learning how to deal and heal with our own wounds that were created decades ago before our kids even came on the scene. That matters a lot, a whole lot. And listen, this is especially true for you women who have spent decades maintaining peace in your home, managing everyone else's emotions, overfunctioning, and absorbing stress quietly. My dear, this is not about being a good Christian wife and a mom. This is straight up conditioning and societal programming that has hurt you. I guarantee so many of my Christian mom friends have been hurt worse by the mantra of the day and the societal thinking of what we're supposed to do and be. Something to think about. Some parents feel envy towards their children's emotional freedom because witnessing someone else receive what you were denied can surface grief that you never processed. It can feel unfair. You might think, I had to survive this. I carried responsibility far beyond my age. Or no one softened this for me. Those thoughts are cues for us to show that there is in fact some healing needed. And Gen X adults are still carrying emotional exhaustion from decades of working, caretaking, managing households, and now sometimes supporting aging parents while supporting our children emotionally through whatever things that they need. And we end up functioning through burnout. And to be met with an eye roll at the grocery store could cause anybody to lose their schmidt. When a child appears emotionally demanding without understanding sacrifice, a parent likely feels emotionally unseen and unheard all over again. And so for years, we have just used dark humor to mitigate an overly emotional response. Like, I think some of us have t-shirts that say sarcasm is my first language, right? But here's the bottom line. This entire generational conversation is not about who's right. Please hear me. This is not about these kids need to just learn respect or we need to be firmer on them. Not at all. My point in opening this conversation is to bring an awareness to the table to something I've watched all of us silently walk through for 30 years. I've been walking with people for a very long time. There's a lot of folks who simply need to grieve, who need to learn a slightly healthier identity. And no, telling us that our identity is now in Christ, that is useless, dear Christian friends. It's absolutely useless because the thing is many of you who say that to people, you don't even know what that means. So dear Gen X friends, resilience is a tool, not an identity. Guys, we need to heal. And think of this, perhaps we'll be the first generation in history who heals while actively parenting at the same time. If that isn't grunge, raw, and authentic, very Gen X energy, I don't know what is. So I hope you will continue joining me in this process of healing a generation. And I hope and pray that you will find your voice again and use it.